For months, the story sounded convincing, until someone from inside the room finally spoke. Not a commentator, not a former player, not a voice chasing headlines, a teammate. While Sheryl Swoopes questioned the chemistry and the narrative around Caitlin Clark, the assumption was simple. Something wasn't right in Indiana. But then Aliyah Boston sat down with Sue Bird, and without raising her voice, she flipped the entire conversation on its head. No drama, no spin, just reality. And in doing so, she exposed a gap between what's being said about the Fever.
I feel like now we can take like a breath to say that we're back. The season's here, so I'm super excited.
And what's actually happening behind closed doors. Because when the person who shares the locker room tells a completely different story, you have to ask, who's really controlling the narrative? Clark-Boston chemistry. Before they were teammates, Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark stood on opposite sides of one of the most electric college basketball games in recent memory. The 2023 NCAA Women's Final Four. South Carolina versus Iowa played in front of over 15,000 people at American Airlines Center in Dallas, with millions more watching on ESPN. The largest television audience for a women's college basketball game in years. The stage does not get bigger than that. Aliyah Boston was the reigning National Player of the Year, the anchor of a South Carolina program.
Aliyah Boston is the Associated Press Rookie of the Year.
That had dominated the sport under Dawn Staley. She was supposed to own that stage. And then Caitlin Clark did what Caitlin Clark does. She went nuclear, 41 points, in a Final Four game, against one of the best defensive teams in the country. She hit threes from 5 feet behind the arc. She drove into traffic and finished through contact. She played with a kind of fearless, almost reckless aggression that turned the entire arena into a spectacle. Iowa won that game, and even though South Carolina went on to win the championship the following year,
The 2024 National Championship Trophy to Coach Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks.
that specific night belonged to Clark. That is not the kind of thing you forget. You can be the most mature, professional, well-adjusted person on the planet, and if somebody hangs 41 on your team in front of the entire country on the biggest night of your college career, that memory is going to live in your chest for a while. So when the two of them ended up on the same roster in Indiana after the 2024 WNBA draft, Clark going first overall and joining a Fever team that had selected Boston the year before,
the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
there was a moment that needed to happen. And Aliyah, Ash being exactly who she is, did not let it fester or turn into something awkward. She walked up to Caitlin and just said it, straight up. Girl, I need to get this off my chest. You did not have to do all that. You dropped 40 on us. We could have just had fun out there. Why did you have to go that hard? And the beauty of the moment is that she was not actually mad. She was being real, being funny, being human. She acknowledged the competitive wound, laughed about it, and then immediately moved past it. That is emotional intelligence that a lot of professional athletes, men and women, never develop. Some players would have carried that Final Four memory around like a chip on their shoulder, letting it quietly poison the relationship before it even started. Boston did the opposite. She named it, she joked about it, and she closed the chapter. And in doing so, she opened the door for something far more valuable, genuine trust between two players who needed to build something together from scratch. What makes this even more impressive is the context. Caitlin Clark did not arrive in Indiana as just another rookie. She arrived as the most hyped, most debated, most scrutinized player in the history of women's basketball.
Clark has become one of the most popular athletes in the country.
The 2024 draft itself drew record viewership. Clark's jersey became the best-selling in WNBA history before she played a single professional game. Every single thing she did was being filmed, analyzed, dissected, and argued about by millions of people. Walking into that environment and trying to form a real basketball partnership with someone, not a friendship for the cameras, not a forced media moment, but an actual on-court connection built on timing and trust and feel, that requires both players to block out an extraordinary amount of noise. And that is exactly what they did. Boston said it best. She made the joke, they both laughed, and then it was simple. We are on the same team now. Let us go out there and make people deal with both of us. That is the energy that built what came next. And it is worth understanding just how rare that kind of transition actually is in professional sports. When Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal played together in Los Angeles, the rivalry between them, the ego, the unspoken competition for status, eventually tore apart one of the most talented rosters ever assembled. Talent does not guarantee chemistry, and proximity does not guarantee partnership. And those things have to be earned through honesty and intention. Boston and Clark avoided that trap entirely, and it did not happen by accident. It happened because Boston chose to confront the elephant in the room on day one, instead of pretending it did not exist. She named the awkwardness, diffused it with humor, and freed both of them to move forward without anything unspoken sitting between them. And when you hear Boston talk about playing alongside Clark now, you can hear the result of that early honesty. There is no residue, no tension, no competition between them. Just two elite players who trust each other and are focused on the same goal. Basketball IQ connection. Chemistry between two basketball players is not something you can manufacture in a press conference or a promotional video. It is built in the mundane hours. Practice reps, film sessions, late game possessions where you learn whether the person next to you is going to be where they said they would be. The greatest two-player partnerships in basketball history all share this quality. Think about Stockton and Malone, a connection so deeply wired that Malone knew where the pass was going before Stockton released it. That did not happen overnight. It took years of shared reps and thousands of small adjustments that nobody in the stands would ever notice. And when Aliyah Boston started describing what it is actually like to play alongside Caitlin Clark,
she comes across half court, you can set an early drag, and there's a deep three going up, and there's a great chance she's making it.
you could hear the very early stages of that same process unfolding. Two elite competitors building a shared language on the floor that no amount of media spin can fake. Hey, Boston broke down the pick-and-roll partnership in a way that casual fans might not fully appreciate, but that basketball people will immediately recognize as significant. She talked about setting screens for Caitlin and watching how defenses react. If the defender drops back or goes under the screen, Boston knows that shot is going up, and it is going in, so she sets the hardest screen she can to create the space. And the numbers support that confidence. Clark shot over 40% from three-point range during stretches of the 2024 season, a percentage that punishes any defense foolish enough to give her daylight. But when the defense adjusts and steps up to take away the three, that is when the real magic happens. Because Caitlin Clark's passing ability, the angles, the timing, the vision, is not normal. Boston described it as almost instinctive. Clark sees the play developing before it fully forms and delivers the ball to the exact spot where it needs to be, often before the defense has even finished rotating. And here's the detail that separates a decent partnership from a dangerous one. Boston said she watches Caitlin's eyes, not the ball, not the defense, Caitlin's eyes. She reads where Clark is looking and uses that information to decide where to cut, when to roll, when to seal her defender, when to pop to the short corner. No verbal communication needed, no arm waving, no begging for the ball. Just two players operating on the same frequency, reading each other in real time like they are sharing the same brain for a split second. If that sounds familiar, it should. Well, Steve Nash used to describe the same connection with Amar Stoudemire in Phoenix. Stoudemire did not need to look for the ball because he could read Nash's eyes and know exactly when and where the pass was coming. That Suns pick and roll became one of the most unstoppable actions in NBA history. Boston and Clark are not there yet, but the raw ingredients, an elite passer with deep range paired with a versatile big who reads the play in real time, are the same ingredients. And they are being mixed by two players still in their early 20s with years of development ahead. What Boston was describing, without using these exact words, is the early stages of a two-player game that could become one of the most effective in the entire WNBA. The vision and passing of Clark, combined with the size, instincts, and finishing ability of Boston, creates a problem that defenses do not have a clean answer for. You cannot help off Boston because she will hurt you at the rim. You cannot go under screens on Clark because she will shoot you out of the building. You cannot switch because the mismatch either way is brutal. That is the math. And the more reps they get together, the worse that math gets for everyone else. Boston also talked about how the Caitlin Clark effect extends beyond just their individual connection.
Caitlin's just does some special things on the court, and so I definitely would be exciting. I know that everyone is super excited to see.
She credited Clark with bringing unprecedented attention to the league and framed it in the most generous possible terms. People come in to watch Caitlin, and then they stay because they realize the whole league is filled with incredible players they had never heard of before. And the numbers back her up. The WNBA saw record attendance in television ratings during the 2024 season, with Fever road games regularly selling out arenas that had struggled to fill seats for years. Clark's presence changed the economic reality of the entire league. Boston did not say any of this with jealousy or with the kind of forced diplomacy that you hear from players who feel overshadowed. She said it like someone who understands that a rising tide lifts every boat and who is confident enough in her own game to welcome the spotlight rather than resent the person holding it. That maturity combined with the on-court chemistry is what makes this partnership so promising. They are not just learning to play together, they genuinely like playing together. And in a league where chemistry often takes a full season to develop, just the fact that Boston and Clark are already reading each other's eyes should tell you everything about where this is headed. Locker room myth. If you spent any time on basketball social media during the Fever's 2024 season, you were probably exposed to one of the most aggressively stupid narratives in recent sports history. The idea that the Indiana Fever locker room was a war zone, that Aliyah Boston secretly resented Caitlin Clark, that the veterans were freezing the rookie out, that body language during timeouts proved there was a toxic divide tearing the team apart from the inside. Entire threads were written, videos were made, commentary careers were built on the foundation of absolutely nothing. And Aliyah Boston addressed all of it on the podcast with the perfect combination of honesty and amusement. She told a story that should put the entire manufactured drama to rest permanently. She said there was one particular day when the locker room tension narrative was at peak volume online. People were writing essays about how the team hated each other. Screenshots of facial expressions were being circulated as evidence. Meanwhile, Aliyah Boston was taking a pregame nap. She woke up, checked her phone, and discovered that the internet had apparently written an entire soap opera about her team while she was asleep. She walked into the locker room, looked at her teammates, and said something along the lines of, "You all good?" And everyone looked back at her like she was speaking a foreign language because they had no idea what she was talking about.
Three-time All-Star Aliyah Boston, but the work doesn't stop for her or the girls wanting to follow in her footsteps.
They were fine. They had always been fine. The crisis existed exclusively on the internet. I'm built by people who had never set foot inside the Fever facility and never spoken to a single player on the roster. Boston did not stop there. She made a point that every fan and every commentator needs to hear. She said that when you have a bad game, it takes a toll on you. Your face shows it. Your body language reflects it. That does not mean you hate your teammates. That does not mean there is a locker room problem. It means you are a competitor who is frustrated with your own performance. And if strangers on the internet are studying your facial expressions during a timeout and building conspiracy theories from what they see, that says a lot more about them than it does about you. She also made something else clear. These are professionals. If there were a real problem, the public would never know about it. Not from body language, not from facial expressions, not from anything that a camera could capture from 50 feet away. The idea that random people online cracked some secret code that the actual players were unaware of is laughable. And Boston laughed at it, because that is what it deserves. This matters because the locker room narrative was not harmless. It fed directly into the broader anti-Caitlin Clark commentary that people like Sheryl Swoopes have been pushing. Every time someone claimed the Fever locker room was fractured, it reinforced the idea that Clark was a divisive presence, that her arrival had damaged the team culture, that the existing players did not want her there. Swoopes leaned into this framing repeatedly, suggesting that sources close to the team had painted a picture of discord, implying that players were unhappy, that the vibe was off, or that the Caitlin Clark experiment was creating more problems than it was solving. And every time she said it, the internet amplified it, and the narrative grew louder and more confident, despite having no foundation whatsoever in reality. Boston's interview makes it undeniably clear. That was never the reality. The team was together from the beginning. They were building something real. And the only people who could not see it were the people who were not in the room. What makes this even more damaging for Swoopes is that Boston did not need to name her. She did not need to fire back directly or create a confrontation. She simply described what was actually happening inside the Fever. And by doing so, made it obvious that the version Swoopes had been selling to the public was fantasy. The contrast between Boston's first-hand account and Swoopes' second-hand speculation could not be sharper. One of them was guessing, the other was living it, and now the audience gets to decide who they believe. Surviving the storm. The 2024 season gave Indiana its first taste of the playoffs in years. And even though the run ended quickly against Connecticut, what Aliyah Boston took from that experience tells you everything about where her head is at. She did not frame it as a moral victory or a nice little learning moment. She talked about it like someone who believed her team was right there, one game away from shifting the entire series, and who is still a little bit haunted by the fact that they did not get the chance to prove it. She said if the Fever had forced a Game 3 back in Indianapolis, she believed they would have won it, not hoped, believed. That is not the language of someone who is happy just to be included. That is the language of someone who is ready to take the next step and is tired of waiting. And what is interesting is how specifically she diagnosed the difference. She did not blame talent. She did not say Connecticut was better. She said the difference was experience. Veteran players who had been through playoff pressure before, who knew exactly when to turn it up, who understood the moments where games are won and lost and did not flinch in those moments the way a younger team naturally would. That was the lesson. Not that Indiana could not compete with the best.
You could say the Dallas Wings caught Indiana Fever, losing 93-100.
But that competing and finishing are two very different things, and the gap between them is measured in composure, not ability. Why that gap became fuel for everything that came next. Then 2025 arrived with expectations that felt like a different universe from the year before. New coaching staff under Stephanie White, major free agency additions, Caitlin Clark coming back as the centerpiece of everything. Suddenly, Indiana was not the scrappy young team trying to surprise people anymore. They were supposed to win. The target moved from their backs to their chests, and everyone in the league started circling them on the schedule. Boston talked about that shift openly. She said the expectations from the outside were enormous. But inside the circle, The team already knew what they wanted. They were not reacting to external pressure. They had already set their own standard, and it was higher than anything the media or the fans had placed on them. White reportedly called Boston the rock of the team, the player whose steadiness and toughness set the tone for everyone else. And nothing in this interview contradicted that label. Boston carries herself like someone who has internalized the responsibility without being crushed by it. And then the injuries hit. Caitlin Clark went down, and for a young team still building its identity around a generational talent, that kind of loss could have been catastrophic. But Boston described the team's response in a way that was almost defiant. The message from day one of the season had been "Next Woman Up." Not as a slogan on a whiteboard, as an actual operating principle. Whoever is healthy, whoever is available, you are expected to be ready. No excuses, no feeling sorry for ourselves. The games keep coming and we keep playing. Boston was honest about how different the team looks with and without Clark on the floor. And what she said reveals just how much Caitlin has changed the way Indiana plays. When Clark is out there, the pace jumps. Everything moves faster. The ball gets pushed in transition before the defense can set. Boston said her own mental preparation changes. When Caitlin is playing, be ready to run. Be ready to get out. Be ready because she is looking and she wants to play fast. Without Clark, the offense becomes more methodical, more half-court oriented, more dependent on working through multiple actions on each possession. Boston did not present either style as better or worse. She framed it as two different systems that the team has learned to operate in, and that flexibility has actually made them tougher. They are not a one-dimensional team that falls apart when Plan A is unavailable. They have a Plan B that still works, and the experience of grinding through difficult stretches without their best player has given them a resilience that championship teams need. There is also the emotional weight of it. Boston admitted it is hard watching a teammate go down, especially someone as competitive and as central to the group as Caitlin. But she also made it clear that the belief never wavered. Clark will be back, and when she comes back, she is returning to a team that did not collapse without her, a team that held the line, that kept competing, that learned new things about itself in the process. That is not a team that is going to be fragile when the pressure rises in the postseason. That is a team that has already been through the fire and knows what it takes to survive it. The noise is fading, not because it was answered, but because it was exposed. For months, the narrative around Caitlin Clark was built from the outside. Speculation, distance, assumption. But inside the room, alongside Aliyah Boston, something else was taking shape. Something quieter, something more precise, something real. While voices like Sheryl Swoopes questioned the foundation was strengthening, possession by possession, red by red, moment by moment. And now the story has shifted, because this was never about drama, it was about timing, about two players learning each other faster than the league can adjust, and a team building something that doesn't need validation to become dangerous. So the conversation changes. Not if Indiana's a problem, but when the rest of the league realizes it's already too